Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And if you've ever wanted to fly away from being an air traffic controller and land to find your new mission through real estate investing, then guess what? This is the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. Because today's guest not only started his career as an IT account executive for a global software company, he's also spent over half a decade as an air traffic controller. That sounds pretty cool. And he's also spent over 8 years in real estate investing. And today he's really focused on building relationships as well as his real estate investing portfolio. He's the managing director and managing partner of New Mission Capital LLC. And I'd like to welcome to today's conversation, Barry Flavin. Barry, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Billy. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, really looking forward to this. Enjoyed our pre-conversation, and I know you're going to be able to add so much value to everyone who is watching us as well as listening to us. So as you know, I like to ask everybody the same 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning, 3 at the end, and kind of in the middle. We're just going to have a great conversation. So first thing for the Going Long family to help to understand is where do you live in the United States?
I am I'm in Michigan, and I'm in the Metro Detroit area. I'm located in Plymouth. So if you're looking at the map, downtown Detroit, kind of southeast Michigan there, we're about 20, 30 minutes west of the downtown Detroit area.
All right, perfect. So I'm familiar with that as well. So that area, so Plymouth, Michigan. And then Barry, what's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
I think the most positive thing that's happened in the last 24 hours to me, and I'd say probably to the greater state of Michigan as well, is I think everybody's kept up on how tightly restricted we've been with COVID and coronavirus here in Michigan. They just finally announced that everybody in the state of Michigan can now go get vaccinated, get their shot. So whether you feel strongly one way or another, I look at that as a giant step towards we're almost done. We're almost moving on to real world life again.
Love that news. And yes, as you said, like the one way or the other, it's a step that we're moving forward and we're getting closer to whatever this new normal is going to be. So thanks for sharing that great news with us, man. Appreciate that. And listen, I shared just like a couple of really high level things about your life, your journey. What we would love for you to do is share in your own words your backstory. And Barry, if you can talk to us about maybe some of the major decisions that you've made along the way, and just kind of help us what's helped you to get to this point in your journey. And then from there, we'll talk about what you're doing today and what the future looks like.
Yeah, certainly. So I'll try to abbreviate it, but hit kind of the key points here. As you mentioned, I used to be in the software space. I was selling ERP software, and specifically to the automotive tier 1, 2, and 3 suppliers, and primarily focused in we say kind of the Rust Belt of the Midwest here, where all the manufacturers and suppliers traditionally lie. Did that out of college. Was there for about roughly 6 years, and my next door neighbor was an air traffic controller and was always telling me what a great job it was. And I did enjoy the job, but quickly got wrapped up in the business travel, always on the road warrior lifestyle. And that started to wear a little bit. Young family at the time. And then the 2008 housing crash happened. And as a sales executive, I saw my pipeline go right out the window with it. And we're having a beer with my neighbor, and I said, I'm like, tell me a little bit more about that government job. I don't see you really sweating it over here. So I started making steps towards making the move to air traffic controller at that time in my life. Hey, you know what? The guaranteed paycheck, 40 hours a week, go home, somebody else's problem. Never going to get emails and phone calls at all hours of the day. And that sounded great. So I made that move. And that's where I met my good friend and now business partner, Josh Sterling, who down the road a little bit got me really involved in real estate and actively building a portfolio. So got settled into air traffic control, had been buying and fixing up just some of my own personal homes, and just out of sheer luck, just timed the market well, caught that big upswing and was fixing these houses up nice, living in them for a few years, moving on. Not really with the intention of, hey, I'm doing this to make money on this house. It was just as life happens, it took one move to another. So slowly accumulated some cash, and that's when I went to my friend Josh and I said, "All right, I've watched you build your portfolio." And at the time, he was at I forget, maybe 50 to 100 doors. And we sat down and he penciled it out, and I said, "All right, give me a couple podcasts to listen to, give me some book recommendations," and kind of educated myself enough. And then probably the most positive thing I did was just go out there and start acting, start doing it, start buying stuff. And some were great deals, some were not so great deals. There's no perfect deal, but the nice thing about buy and hold real estate is time fixes most mistakes. So not all of them, but most. So we started buying single family homes. We bought, my initial thought was, I have this government pension and healthcare and all this stuff lined up for, my mind was kind of a promise from the government. And I was like, if I could get 5 to 10 rental houses, if I bought them at that point in my life, by the time I retire, I'll have them paid off. I won't owe any money on them. And that'll be a great supplement to my government pension. So we went out, we started buying houses, and we bought, immediately the light bulb went off in my head. It's like, wow, this is how you really gain independence and other streams of income. So we bought our first 17 houses or 18 houses, I want to say, in 17 months. So we were on a pace there for a while. We just kept finding, hey, there's another deal, and just pushed ourselves out of our comfort zone continuously and started borrowing private money from lenders and growing the portfolio that way. And then kind of how we got to where we are today, me and my friend Josh we're at a get together, and we're always talking real estate and who's up to what and what are we buying and what's the kind of the next step here. And he had started to buy some apartment buildings, some I call them small to medium sized buildings, anywhere from a 20 something unit to 40 something unit. Had 4 or 5 of them maybe. And he said, you really got to take that next step and get into multifamily. I said, absolutely, that's really where I'd love to go. That's what I'm gearing up for here. And in the kind of the market that we target, he had quickly built a good reputation. So he's getting first look at all of these deals. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, Josh, why don't you go start chasing bigger deals and kind of leave these smaller ones behind and stop targeting those so I can maybe pick 1 or 2 up. And so we put our heads together, and he said, because Josh is a great operator, he started his own property management company, and they manage all of our stuff still to this day. And that was kind of a key piece in me growing my portfolio so quick. Was I always said, I want to be a real estate investor. I do not want to be a landlord. So I would buy the keys to these houses and turn around and just at closing, here's the keys, guys, the game plan, same kitchen, same flooring, etc. And so we put our heads together. He said, you know what? He goes, I'll start chasing bigger deals. He goes, but I don't have a network of folks that I can go to and raise that type of capital. He said, because you seem to enjoy that side of the business and you have a better network for that. He said, I'll start chasing bigger deals. You start talking to the folks about potential investments down the road. So we did exactly that. And kind of fast forward here, he calls me one day and says, hey, he goes, that Park Forest deal that we've been chasing, 144 unit deal here in the Metro Detroit area. And I said, yeah. He goes, well, we got it. I was like, we immediately skipped the excited phase and went right to panic almost, because like, man, now we got to put our money where our mouth is. So had to go out and raise $2.8 million to get that deal done. So we started tapping the friends and family network and folks that we'd worked with in the past, and that was deal one, and that was I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And fast forward, we've done 5, 6 syndications, so going well.
Man, this is a really great story. I mean, the thing that you said, and I guess because also too, there are so many different people that are IT sales executives that are watching us and listening to us. When you talked about the 2008 and your pipeline just shrinking up, I'm sure so many people were like, I remember that. Because it was one of those moments in time where you just kind of, you didn't have to relive that until many 13 years later or 10, 12 years later, something like that. So,
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things. So you went from IT sales and then you were looking for more stability. So you took a pivot and you went into the 40 hours a week, no mails come home afterwards, and you're living kind of had things like pretty much your life. The trajectory was already kind of laid out. But then you had this moment where you were talking to Josh and you were figuring out, well, he was doing something. And then there was a click kind of in your mind. And it's because for me, this is really interesting because IT sales people, I'm surrounded by them all the time. And you went to something that was like 180 degrees different, which is a government role. Not better, not worse, just very different. And then you went from there to like really into the abyss, which is being a business owner.
Yeah.
Can you take us through kind of some of the different emotional things that were happening with you at the time that you made the first change from IT into the government role, and then from the government role, you jumping into business owner and syndicator?
Certainly, yeah. It was both a couple of big pivoting life moments, right? I remember when I left the sales world, I was mid to late 20s, and I was doing well. I was hitting my sales quotas. Was making well into the 6-figure range. But again, just trying to pivot to that lifestyle of a little bit more just guaranteed. I don't need to be chasing a commission check every week, every day. And I remember when I made that move, we have 2 daughters, and I had first young daughter at home, and I find myself now, so I've made the jump. I've saved up money. I've planned for this. And now I'm sitting in Oklahoma City at the FAA's head training facility there. And I remember when I got my first paycheck from the government, it was $300 something for 2 weeks. And I just go, God, what am I doing? I hope this works. Because it's not a guaranteed thing. You go into that program, you still have to pass certain benchmarks to qualify to pass and to be placed into a facility. So that was, for me, that was kind of that was a big emotional roller coaster. And then you do get through that, and now you spend another couple of years of going through on the job training where we're the guys that sit in the dark radar room and stare at a screen all day, and you're talking to planes that are carrying thousands of people throughout your day. So there's a big impact there. So it's now I joke, I kind of lighten it up a little bit more than you should, but it's very routine now, the job. It's almost like working in a factory. You go in, you do the same thing every day. The planes come and they go and they turn and they climb and descend, and they do all the same things at the same points typically. So once I got settled into that was when I really started, and I started to take a more serious interest in real estate. So it's always kind of fun watching Josh. We'd be out golfing. He's on the phone all the time, and we're watching him build this business, but not paying too close of attention to it. And then we start to see him really gain some traction and take off. And it's like, all right, I just need to have something else that I'm building and growing here. I'm essentially now bored with air traffic control. I go in and I do my job. I go home, and so now I've kind of come full circle now to that lifestyle I wanted to get away from in the sales world. I'm probably back there and even busier than I would have been in that world.
Yeah. So, and it's really interesting. And what I love about what you just shared with us, Barry, is I think a lot of times people will think that it's all about the money. And you clearly made a lifestyle choice to go from IT sales into air traffic controlling. And then from there, you've also now said, hey, look, there's a way that I can also gain more control over my life financially, and also be able to add a more of a quality of life as well. And I think it's a really important point for so many of our going long family to really realize that although we talk about the benefits that we can derive from investing in tangible assets, it's not just about the money, because there are lives that we can go out and positively impact. And it's something that I think is really important. So I appreciate you sharing that once again. And you also talked about, you made the I guess the talking point. You were in the single family residences and you were buying the single family houses, but sometimes people are really challenged to leave the single family residences to go into larger multifamily. Like sometimes it can be a really big challenge mentally to do that. So talk us through what that was like for you to make that transition. And I guess, what did you find, or what are you finding now on the other side, being in the multifamily space and being able to add value there?
Certainly, yeah. So for me, when I was considering making that transition, it was the biggest hurdle for me was going back to that kind of mentality of, I want to be a real estate investor. I don't want to be a landlord. So we always kind of say there's three pillars to the deal. You got to find the deal itself, and then you have to find the money to close the deal. And then, I don't know, probably most importantly is, how are you going to run the deal? Because now you have this asset. Great. You figured out a way to find it, buy it, close it. Now it's got to perform. Now you got to put your business plan in action here. So for me, that was always kind of the biggest holdback. I was like, if I do find one of these and close it, what am I going to do with this thing? I don't want to run it. So that's why it really is a perfect marriage between me and my partner, because I'm a big fan of it. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Let's combine forces. It makes sense. So when we teamed up, it was, Josh, you've already started this property management business. You've grown it now. You've added all of the processes and procedures to this to streamline everything and to make sure that it runs well. So that was kind of the big leaping point for me to get over that hurdle. And I guess where I brought value to the equation was, Josh said, he's like, I can go raise $1 million once. He goes, but I'm tapped after that. And he said, for me, he says that $1 million is going to be the most painful thing I do. I just don't enjoy. He can do it, and he's great at talking with folks and really going into the weeds, but he doesn't like going out and meeting with people and pitching them deals. And, hey guys, here's how we're going to get you 16% average annual returns. We're going to refinance this property and keep it and hold it long-term, do cost segregation, just walking people through that strategy and all the things we do on a day-to-day process for each project.
Yeah. And so I think the biggest thing to take away from what you're sharing with us, right? As you made that transition, you were clear that, and I know you said it before, but it's about making sure that you really wanted to become an investor or a business owner versus just a landlord. Like, once again, like one's not better than the other. It just depends on how you're built. Right. And so what I also love that you're saying, Barry, is they're very complementary skills. So when you're building successful teams, it's about being able to make sure that you have the right people on the bus, and each person is able to execute as well as possible in their lane. And when you're able to do that, then you're able to derive value for your investors and for your residents. And so that is one of the other formulas for building successful teams, are finding the right complementary skills to be able to add value. So I think that's fantastic. And also one of the other things, so of course we love talking about investing beyond your backyard, and we want people to feel very comfortable and confident in doing that. And so you talked about where you actually live in Michigan. I happen to know that you also invest in other states. And so one of the things that I'm always interested in, and a lot of the people that are here listening to us, as the people that are potentially looking to get into investing, or they're actively passive investing and things like that, is, what was the reason that really motivated you to say, look, it's time for us to actually invest somewhere that's not literally 2 miles down the road? Like, talk us through that, what that decision, because it goes against conventional wisdom, because most people tell us just invest in your backyard.
Yeah, that's definitely the easiest thing is invest in your backyard. If it's right down the street and it's right within a 5-10 minute drive of home base for the property management company, that's best, right? And we're slowly growing out from that. So we did start there, and we continue to push the business. So we've moved down to the Toledo area. We own several properties down that way, and that forced us to open another office down there and have more full-time staff down there. And that branch office now services that Toledo and kind of Monroe area of Southern Michigan. And then recently, this past year, we closed a 67 unit deal kind of on the north side of Metro Detroit area in Shelby Township. And again, when you're looking at the map from our headquarters in Southgate, Michigan, that's about a 45-minute drive. Throw some traffic in there and an accident, it could quickly turn into an hour and a half drive. So that forced us to open up another small branch office up in that neck of the woods. So if you go from kind of the furthest northern part of our territory that we own right now, it's to the south, it's about a 2-hour drive. So we're continuing to push outward. So, and we do look at deals that are outside of even just the Metro Detroit and Toledo area. We do look all throughout the Midwest here. It's just it's a tough competitive market right now. It's great for the stuff that you own. It's making acquisitions pretty tough right now, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different market dynamics that are happening and things like that. And I guess one of the things we always like to just put the perspective in is one of the things that you talked about earlier, right? Once you're clear on what you specifically are looking for, it may be cash flow, it may be tax benefits, it may be appreciation over time, then that pushes you to the locations that make the most sense. Those are the locations that are creating appreciation, those that are creating cash flow, et cetera. But you said something earlier, and it really is about the team, especially when you're looking to be a passive investor. You are betting on the jockey, as they say, right? And it is making sure that you understand the team, because then once the team is really competent in their specific location, then whether you put in a 144 unit property or a 252 unit property, provided that they're the similar type of thing that your team understands how to operate, then it really doesn't matter, right? Because you've put everything in line. So there is an importance in terms of location for the operator, but as a passive investor, it's really to look where are the locations that are going to provide you what it is that you're looking for, and making sure that you're working with the competent team. So that's just kind of an overall thesis that I like to talk about here in the Going Long podcast. I'm just curious what your take is on that.
No, that's absolutely it. There's a bunch of people that do what we do out there, and we kind of always one of the benefits of investing with us, New Mission Capital, is that we're in-house operations. We have 30 people on staff for the property management company, so we're able to steer this ship on a moment's notice. If things are not happening the way we want them to be happening, it's as easy as we're walking in the door, we're going to that specific building and talking to those folks and pulling those levers ourselves. It's not, okay, we have to set up a meeting next week with the property management company, talk about how things are going, the changes we want to make. So we're in full control of all of our properties. And like you mentioned, that was one of the strengths that that Josh had putting this property management company together in the first place. He comes from an aviation background before being an air traffic control commercial pilot. So he was wired to operate on processes, procedures, checklists. We do this, then this, then this. And if that doesn't work, go back, check this. And this is how we do things. So we still operate on that same mentality.
Love that. And so being able to, once again, it's back in you're building the team and you're executing in your lane and making sure that you're doing what you're the strongest at. And ultimately the value is derived from your residents and your team. And so that makes a lot of sense. What about I want to go back to your IT sales professional days once again. And I always think that we learn so many different transferable skills, and many times we don't take stock in the things that we learn when we're working at very large companies. Like one of the things that drives me crazy is I always hear people like, I hate my job. I want to do this. And I'm getting into real estate because I hate my job. Like I'm not in that camp. Like I'm quite the opposite. And I also feel very fortunate to have worked with market leading companies that have provided lots of training and skills and things like that. But just curious from your perspective, if you go back to your IT days as a sales exec, what are the skills that you learned there that are serving you and your team and your investors as well as your residents today?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. You don't necessarily take stock in those previous life experiences and trainings that you've had, where we, as a young salesperson, we went through so many different trainings where you're learning how to giving presentations and just networking with folks. And you go to so many sales conferences and meetings and things of those nature. So I guess, circling back now, I'm back in kind of that role where I'm constantly, under normal circumstances, going to networking events, constantly meeting folks, keeping in touch, keeping organized. We have our CRM and our investor portal where that helps me stay organized from an investor standpoint. And I guess the thing I enjoy the most is like getting out and talking to people face to face. That's what I did a lot in the sales world. We always said, show me the guy with the biggest expense account, and that's the guy that's probably going to crush his numbers the most. So get out there, get face to face, meet people. That's what I enjoy doing. So.
Awesome. So in being able to do that and taking, like you said, taking away a lot of the different training opportunities that you had and things like that, and being able to put it into practice every single day is something that is definitely valuable. So also too, like talk us through, so we've talked about a lot of the good things and stuff like that, but there in every market, there are always going to be challenges. And whether you're doing that as an active investor or a passive investor, the challenges always exist. And one of the things I believe is the challenges exist. So let's help to understand what they are. And then most importantly, kind of what of the challenges that you see that you're experiencing or have experienced in your location, what are the things that your organization does to mitigate as much as possible some of those challenges or provide the transparency that's necessary for potential investors and also for your residents?
Gosh. So some of the challenges and how to mitigate those. Right now, this last year has been it's been a challenge one for everybody in so many ways. But thinking back to this time last year, we were all in the same boat. We were kind of like, what do we do now? Like, what's going to happen? We're all officially in uncharted territory. So I remember we reached out to the investors right away and we said, all right, guys, we are holding all distributions just out of precaution. We were keeping as close of an eye as possible on collections at the time. And I guess the biggest thing that got us is just open communication with all of our investors and having that transparency, not trying to hide anything from anyone, just saying, hey guys, here, we're preparing for the worst. We're hoarding cash right now. And if we need to, we're just going into survival mode. Luckily, we kind of hunkered down for a month or two. We saw that pass and we got back to, here, guys, here's all the cash that we held on to. Here's your distributions. And again, open lines of communication. Guys, here's what we're dealing with from an eviction ban standpoint. And here's how we're going to weather that storm. We're helping all of the tenants to the best of our ability get access to all of these different programs that were out there. And that's kind of how we weathered those challenges.
All right, perfect. So it sounds like you weathered them, just tackling them head on, talking about COVID specifically. And just because I think a lot of times people will get afraid, like, oh my gosh, I've got to give them bad news. If you think about the amount so you all sent out communication, what percentage of the communication that came back from you, from your investors, what percentage of that was just really not happy investors, upset investors, in terms of their responses to you? What percentage would you put on that?
I would say almost zero. Every single person came back with kind of the same. I was like, guys, we get it. We understand. Good job. Thanks for being proactive on this. Thanks for the open line of communication. I think that's kind of one of the things I'm really starting to be proud of ourselves for. And we're getting really good positive feedback from all of our investors. Like, they tell us, guys, the reason we like investing with you and we'll continue to invest with you is you don't hide the bad stuff. because something's going to come up. It doesn't matter what assets you buy, something's going to happen. So you're going to have to deliver bad news. And if you're transparent with everybody and tell them exactly what's going on, tell them the good stuff, tell them the bad stuff, and tell them the stuff that we're kind of waiting to see how this shakes out. And people really like that transparency that we give.
Yeah, and I love that, just the way that you share that with us. And most importantly for the Going Long family is, look, things are going to happen. They're always going to happen. I mean, I had an incident not too long ago where there was one of my investors was, I guess freaked out. Right. But the important part is, number one, you need to be there. And you need to communicate with what is happening, because sometimes there's bad news that you have to give. And so you need to be upfront with that. And sometimes it could be a misunderstanding, and you need to be able to be there to clarify whatever is happening. And so, but the end result, and this is what I really want the Going Long family to understand, is based on what Barry's saying, is, look, there wasn't a negative feedback when you gave potentially negative news. It's just, you're sharing the news and you're talking about what you're doing. And that's part of owning a business and being able to interact. And not every single deal is going to work, right? And there's going to be moments where things aren't happening. You talked about not being able to do distributions. If you're not able to do a distribution, nobody's happy about that.
Yeah. And one of the other things is, we're not happy to deliver bad news either. The way we structure our deals is that we align ourselves with our investors, where that distribution, we make money off these buildings too. I mean, we didn't distribute, which means we also didn't see any money from that property. Our money was also sitting there. And same thing, if we have a bad quarter and it doesn't perform like it should, if we don't distribute or it's a poor distribution, we're right there with you. So,
yep, I appreciate you sharing that. So, Barry, one of your, like, a typical investor that is investing in your opportunities, like, what is it that they're looking for, the opportunity to provide them in their lifestyle, just to give us an idea?
Yeah, the typical investors, we do have some folks that are very, very, I call them active passive investors, where they seek out operators like us. They invest in a multitude of deals. So they're out there constantly looking for new assets to place money in. And then I would say most of the folks, they have their day job. They invest heavily in their 401ks, and they also have their own account where they buy individual stocks and they move stuff around. And then they look for alternative investments. And that's where they turn to us and say, all right, I can continue to place money over here. I know it's safe. It's going to grow. And we've gotten a lot of traction with our investors where we're long-term buy and hold folks. We don't want to sell these assets until we're out of depreciation and we start to see major tax penalties because of it. So our goal is to buy a property, add value to that, refinance the property, say 3-5 years down the road, return as much capital as we can. And then where we might differentiate ourselves a little bit is our investors retain their same percentage of equity that they initially invested in. So in a perfect world, somebody gives me $100,000, 3 years, 5 years down the road, I do a refinance, I give you all that money back. You still own your same percentage of the building. The cash flows, you get to take advantage of the depreciation. So once people kind of understand that philosophy, it really starts to click for them. Is okay, I got my job, I got my 401k, I got my investments, and then here's some great alternative investments that are going to continue to grow and build some generational wealth that I joke and I tell my investors, and like, well, what do we do when we sell this thing? I go, make it your kid's problem. We're going to figure out a way to do a 1031 exchange, or be 20, 30 years down the road before we need to figure that out.
Yeah. No, so I appreciate you sharing also to the typical person that's coming to you, and also really what it is that they're looking to do. And once again, it's another portion of the portfolio that they're building, and that's a particular allocation of their portfolio. So yeah, man, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And I guess the thing that kind of we always have to get to this kind of part of the conversation is we get to the Going Long Final Three, Barry. And the thing is, I never asked the Going Long Final Three until you tell me that you're ready for me to ask you. So are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. So the Going Long Final Three, we started with you over in the US, and now I'd like to bring it back to start the Going Long Final Three here to Europe. So help us understand, Barry, what is your favorite European city, either that you visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
My favorite European city is Bellagio, Lake Como, Italy.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And a wonderful, wonderful place. So love that. Awesome. Second question. One of the things, and you're a very successful person, you've demonstrated that across the board. And, one of the things that really successful people have in common is that typically have only made one mistake during their entire career. Yeah, you laugh too. I always get that wrong on purpose. So here's the thing, like everybody goes through learning opportunities, failure events, mistakes, whatever you want to call them. But I guess what is the one lesson that you would pay forward to the Going Long family?
The biggest thing I always tell folks when it comes to real estate investing, investing in general, is take action. I mean, obviously educate yourself, network, but don't get caught up in the analysis paralysis. Start taking action. There's no perfect deal, but just run your numbers, do your math, have your standards, have your criteria, and take a step forward and do it. Just one step at a time.
All right. Love that. So go out and take action. And then the last of the Going Long final three, and this is always to feed our minds here. What is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family?
This is a recommendation I just got. I'm going to pass it along as well because I'm excited to read it. I just ordered it. It's Titan, biography of Rockefeller.
Oh, cool. Titan.
I was watching, I don't know if you've seen it. It's a series, the Men Who Built America, and it goes through Rockefeller, Carnegie, and those guys that really led us through the Industrial Revolution era. And I was talking with my dad about it. He goes, if you like that, you have to read Titan. He goes, it's just an amazing book. So
there you go. Recommendation from Dad that now you're passing forward to us here at the Going Long family. So awesome. So Titan talks about the Rockefeller life.
One of the guys that goes through a big book every week.
All right, cool. So really appreciate that. Man, you know what? The thing is, Barry, we started out with you talking about and starting with a young family in the IT industry and kind of that 2008 and the pipeline dried up. And then afterwards you realized you needed more quality of life. So you were focusing on air traffic controlling and moving over in that direction. You had a chance to meet up with a really cool friend that you didn't know at the time was going to help to change the trajectory of your life with Josh. And, the two of you have been able to figure out, how you start with small stuff and then get into larger multifamily, and not just there, but you're also impacting others' lives. And you're also able to realize that your complementary skills help to actually add value to everybody across the board. And you started in one place and you're continuing to expand those boundaries, like going long, as we like to talk about here. And you're adding value for your investors and for your residents. And so I know that so many people that have been watching us and listening to us are like, I got to get in touch with Barry. Like, I got to do this now. So help us understand, Barry, what is the best way for the Going Long family to get in touch with you, find out more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, so the easiest way to get a hold of me is you can email me directly. It's simple, just barry@newmissioncapital.com. You can also visit our website, newmissioncapital.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook, those social media platforms. So.
Perfect. So Barry@newmissioncapital.com. Go check them out over at newmissioncapital.com and newmissioncapital.com is the website. So make sure that you get over there. You see what Barry and the team have going on. Lots of great information. And that way you can be in touch with Barry and his team. So listen, Barry, I want to thank you very much for investing the time with me and with the entire Going Long family for today's conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Awesome. Just a couple quick words for the Going Long family. Listen, I always like to say, today you have an opportunity to make a positive impact on someone else's life. Share today's episode. I mean, Barry left so much great knowledge, experience. Share with 2 or 3 other people at least, right? You have an opportunity to make a positive impact on someone else's life. So take advantage of that opportunity now. And also too, listen, leave us an honest review. I go through each one of these reviews, always working to make the podcast better for you and also for the like-minded people that you're attracting to our Going Long family. So like I said, honest review, not a 5-star, an honest review. And I really appreciate that. And you know what? I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back to the very next conversation. Until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Wow. Don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.